All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to Everything College Football Podcast. Today, I'll be breaking down the 2023 Georgia Bulldogs quarterback situation. Obviously, this is going to be a hot topic around CFB. Stetson Bennett departs after winning back-to-back national championships for the Dogs. 65-7 complete dominance over TCU. But now it's time to look ahead to the offseason. This is going to be a very interesting quarterback battle. I think we got three candidates here that are phenomenal. Quite underrated group of passers as well, I would say. But first, we're going to start with Stetson Bennett. He's departing, of course. 65% completion rate, 8,400 yards, 66 touchdowns, 21 picks in his career. 10 of his 14 career rushing scores came this past season where he was a Heisman finalist. That's one of his biggest accomplishments, I would say. Everyone knows the story. Former walk-on, JUCO, has to battle his way here at Georgia. Don't need the detailed story. Everyone's aware of it. Burlsworth Award winner as the nation's best former walk-on. Of course, there's two national championships, and he was the MVP in all four college football playoff games over the past 2 years. Very consistent years from Stetson, but I do think this 15-0 record in 2022 was his most impressive year by far. 4,100 yards, 27 touchdowns, 7 picks. Had 7 interceptions in each of the last 2 years. Had 2 more passing touchdowns in 21 compared to this past season. Thing about Bennett, though, this is a guy... what might be next for him is potentially a late-round NFL draft prospect. I do think he'll probably be taken on day 3. It's going to be up to the Combine, though, and if he goes to the Senior Bowl, he's going to have to impress, in these events leading up to April's draft. He's kind of a guy that reminds me of A.J. McCarron, Jake Coker, a guy that's great in a system, that leads it very well, surrounded by a lot of great talent, and, he executes and understands it terrifically, but... in terms of being a next-level prospect, I do think his leadership's a big plus, his resilience as well. They were down in that national championship game against Alabama 2 years back, led them to a victory there, phenomenal fourth quarter in that effort, and then same thing against Ohio State, outscored them 18-3. He put the team on his shoulders there in those 2 games, and, it's really going to be, I think, the best characteristic that a lot of people won't talk about is his resiliency, and I think his entire story kind of represents that word. Big-time leader, though. Teammates love him. I think for Bennett, though, he has good arm strength. He can make intermediate throws, good throws when he's in rhythm. Nice quick release as well, I would say. It's quite quick. Good athlete. His ability to escape and quickly get upfield, very impressive. He showcased that often. Again, 10 rushing touchdowns. But the biggest negatives, though, when the reads aren't open, he can tend to hold it a little too long. The accuracy and zip wavers under pressure immensely. Consistently makes mistakes when he's under pressure. The Ohio State game, he took a handful of sacks, threw a bad pick early in that game. Of course, he ended up bouncing back. He stays confident, so I think that's certainly something that's going to stand out to scouts. But in terms of raw skills, what can he provide for an NFL team remains to be seen. I think that's why, again, the Senior Bowl and the Combine are going to be big for him to kind of prove where his arm strength sits. Because, again, this is a guy that plays with a lot of clean pockets, a phenomenal running game, one of the nation's best. I would say it's the nation's best backfield. A first-round tight end, the greatest tight end I've ever seen in Brock Bowers. This is not a complex system. Todd Monken is a phenomenal play caller. He's also got an elite defense on the other side. So this is not a very tough situation for Stetson Bennett to be in. So it's going to be a big-time test for him at the next level. Can he go to a team like the Panthers or something like that, maybe the Falcons, a team looking for a quarterback, and impress and take the reins of the offense? Remains to be seen. Of course, we'll be rooting for him as a college football fan. Great story for him. Looking at this quarterback battle, I think Carson Beck, he's probably the most underrated one in this battle because a lot of people want to talk about Vandagriff and Stockton because they're young, hot shots with a lot of raw talent. But I think Carson Beck's probably going to be the guy that ends up getting this starting position. Redshirt junior, he's been around a long time. He's been in the system a number of years. 6'4", 215 from Jacksonville, Mandarin High School. This guy was a 4-star recruit, 250th overall, 9th-ranked pro-style quarterback in the class of 2020. 74% completion rate this year on only 35 passes, 4 touchdowns, no picks. Wasn't as sharp in 2021 at only 23 attempts, so, pretty limited sample size there. High football IQ, though, student of the game. He's always watching film. Big arm. He's got some really good feet. Beck moves quite well in the pocket, I'd say, and his ability to go through reads. It really showcases his ability to, again, be a student of the game with high IQ. Made an elite throw on the run against Vanderbilt for a touchdown. They were up big in that game. They let him, get a handful of reps, and he made a great throw. Good rip on the ball. I think Carson Beck, he's been around a long time. He's waited his turn. I think this is his job to lose, most certainly. He came into the national championship, only threw, I think it was 3 passes, but one of them was a great slant route on the outside. Showed ability to set his feet and just let it rip into a tight window. So I think the experience in Todd Monken's system here, and again, he's an impressive raw talent in his own right. I think Carson Beck is going to be the favorite here, and we'll see how he performs in the spring. Obviously, that's going to be a highly anticipated game with these three quarterbacks going at it, but I do think Beck here, his size is not bad, pretty prototypical size. Maybe put on a couple of pounds and you'll be right there at that NFL-like size. Again, he was not the highest rated recruit on this roster, which, it's loaded with 4-star, or, high-end 4 stars. Top 100 guys, 5 stars, all that. 250th overall, it's not great, but Kirby's smart. I think he's put together a great quarterback room, and he sees something in Carson Beck. That's why he brought him in, and this is going to be an opportunity for him to shine. Looking at Brock Vandagriff, this is the guy that most Georgia fans are probably going to want to start, and I think you got to watch how this is played by Kirby and his staff because he has a 5-star, 4th-ranked pro-style QB in 2021, which was a very stacked class. Quinn Ewers, Caleb Williams, 17th overall prospect. Biggest problem is you don't want him to transfer. There was some rumors he was potentially going to head to Georgia Southern this offseason. That has yet to happen. And I haven't heard much taking place with him potentially moving on. So we'll see what happens. But this is a guy that is not going to want to sit on the bench for too long. A variety of arm angles he uses. Deep velocity. Wasn't exactly A+ coming out of high school. But he's been ready and waiting. I think he's certainly developed in some of those key areas. Good speed on scrambles. He can throw with power on the run. This is a guy with a big arm. Some of his negatives, though, I think are going to be more so what to watch because obviously everyone knows he's got a big arm, got some great size as well. He really winds up when he throws. He's not, possessing an exactly snappy release, especially on some of these deep throws. His mechanics also need some work, being a 6'3", 205. His legs are quite long, and he, tends to get those stretched out a little bit too much. And that leads to, sloppy mechanics. You certainly don't want that. He's a confident player, though. He has skills as a runner. He had a nice little spin move in the, the spring game for Georgia back in 2021 when I was looking at that film. But I believe he can really be a dangerous guy in the pocket, especially when he tightens up that release. Another thing he does that I don't like is he throws off his back foot way too often. I think this is a guy that certainly needs to settle down, trust his protection, sit in the pocket a little bit more, protect the football a little bit too much more because, he definitely winds up when he throws, but when he runs, when he's escaping the pocket, he lets the ball out way too much. That's going to be easy for defenders to cause fumbles. So just some things he really needs to tighten up. Overall, though, not much you can complain with. He's a young guy. Obviously, he's not played one bit. I think maybe he had a pass attempt or two this year. Can't be for certain. I think he has the highest upside of the bunch, though, because of that pure arm talent he has. And I think when he certainly gets with a good quarterback coach and develops a good bit, this is a guy that's really going to be dangerous for some people. 6'3", 205, out of Bogart, Georgia. This is an impressive young talent in Brock Vandagriff. And the last one, Gunnar Stockton, redshirt freshman coming into this year, 6'1", 220, Tiger County, Raybun, Georgia, a 4-star. He was also, like Beck, not the highest-ranked guy on this roster, but 124th overall is not bad. A 7th-ranked pro quarterback in this past class. Stockton, a guy Kirby said plays with confidence, really understands the system. He's accurate. He knows how to attack the defense. His football IQ is something that's certainly going to stand out. And, Kirby said he exposed our defense as a scout team quarterback. I know Dan Jackson was raving about him earlier in September. Much quicker release than Stockton. Tight window thrower of his own right. Plenty of arm vertically. Nice touch passer as well. He also has that winner's attitude, and he also really trusts his protection. So I think when you're weighing the pros and cons between Vandagriff and Stockton, Gunnar, I think, might have the edge on Vandagriff, despite, of course, the recruiting rankings. When you get into college and you start battling on the field, those rankings really go out the window. So I certainly think that Stockton is probably going to be one of the guys that's going to crawl into that number 2 spot. I think why he will be the starter is because he did impress as a scout team passer, and his football IQ really stands out. Top to bottom, I think Georgia has 3 very similar quarterbacks. This is going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Obviously, we got a couple months before they play their spring game. Carson Beck's going to be the favorite, though. I think his experience and what he's showcased in his limited playing time, that's going to give them a leg up in this one. But I think Stockton's going to take over that number 2 spot. It's hard to say that about a 5-star in Vandagriff. But I just think at this point in time, he might be more developed than Vandagriff is. Georgia fans would be able to relay that in the comments and their opinion on it. I don't think you can go wrong here with either 3. You know what they say, if you don't have one if you got 3 or 2 or 3 quarterbacks, you don't have one. I don't think that's the case here with Georgia. They have 3 quarterbacks, and they do have one that they could pick, and they'd be just fine with. And this system's very simple, too. Not for opposing defenses because they do a variety of different things that are hard to attack. But you're going to continue to see physicality up front, clean pockets, pass catchers that are open due to scheming and pure ability, especially Brock Bowers. So I don't think they're going to go wrong here. Carson Beck, he's going to be my prediction early prediction to be the starter. I do think Gunnar Stockton's an underrated guy to watch, and potentially Vandagriff, if he's really worked on some things like his mechanics and his release. I think this is a guy that could certainly be an All-American type player. So very interested to see what happens here with Georgia. Hopefully those fans below can give me some good insight on these guys. Would love to learn more. So make sure you guys comment, subscribe. See you next time.